completely unsatisfactory into the crucial issues of what I call following the money. Early in 2017, I began asking the committee leadership to look into any and all financial relationships between Russia and Donald Trump and his associates. In an open hearing the committee held in March, I noted a number of public facts. First, there is an extraordinary history of money laundering in Russia. Billions of dollars from corruption and other illegal activities have been moved out of the country. Second, the president's son said in 2008, and I quote, "Russians make up a pretty disproportionate cross-section of a lot of our assets." Third, entities associated with the president had already been the subject of millions of dollars of fines for willful, repeated, and long-standing violations of anti-money laundering laws. And fourth, the Congress and the American people still hadn't seen the president's tax returns. Since then, there have been numerous additional press stories about associates of the president and their financial connections to Russia. These stories, in my view, require thorough, detailed investigation. And it's not just by the press. The special counsel's indictment against former Trump campaign manager Paul Manafort included extensive, detailed allegations of laundering of millions of dollars from pro-Russia Ukrainian interests. This indictment provided a clear example of how a foreign influence campaign can be financed through illicit means and why the importance of following the money is so crucial. There have been other acknowledged financial connections, such as former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn and his payment from RT, the television station that is part of Russia's state-run propaganda apparatus. And then there are the strange denials, such as when Jared Kushner wrote in his statement in July, and I quote, "I have not relied on Russian funds to finance my business activities in the private sector." I can tell you, Mr. President, that is some kind of good lawyering, because the word rely is subjective. Mr. Kushner didn't deny financial ties to Russia. He said he hadn't relied on those funds. Not whether he had any, not whether he had ever had any, but he hadn't relied on them. That's about as lawyerly and subjective a statement as you can imagine. My bottom line is that these financial ties need to be a central focus of the Intelligence Committee's inquiry. And the reason I say this, and I want to spell out what the connection here is our inquiry covers counterintelligence concerns related to Russia and the election, including any intelligence regarding links between Russia and individuals associated with political campaigns. Following the money is counterintelligence 101. If you want to compromise somebody, money is one of the best ways to do it. So let me repeat that. That's the connection. That's the connection between the counterintelligence work that is so important and part of the committee's charge. That counterintelligence work involves following the money because that's key to really getting into the question of whether somebody's been compromised, because one of the best ways to do it is through funds. So tonight, based on this review of documents, I call again on the committee to follow the money aspects of this inquiry, including by holding public hearings specifically on this topic. In addition, it is not just the Intelligence Committee that ought to focus on these issues. As I've been saying since March, the Senate Finance Committee, of which I'm the ranking Democrat, has a crucial role to play on follow the money issues as well. Relevant documents produced by elements of the Treasury Department which are outside the intelligence community, such as the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, ought to be reviewed. There's a need to review these documents by the Finance Committee staff because we have specific experience and expertise in financial investigations. In addition, the Finance Committee specifically has oversight responsibilities for tax matters. The Manafort indictment, which included tax evasion, demonstrated clearly that taxes, tax evasion, offshore accounts, and suspicious real estate transactions are all connected. They're all connected, and they ought to be part of any serious investigation into ties between Russia, the president, and his associates. Unfortunately, I and our committee have gotten no cooperation from the Treasury Department. Despite my repeated requests as the ranking Democrat on the Finance Committee, the Treasury Department has just stonewalled, plain old stonewalling, the lead committee with jurisdiction for the agency. For that reason, I want to announce tonight, Mr. President, that I will hold indefinitely the nomination of the individual to be Assistant Secretary of the Treasury for Intelligence and Analysis until the Department cooperates with the Finance Committee and provides the committee with documents it needs to do its job. Again, I regret that I have to take this step. By the way, many of these documents, Mr. President, they're unclassified in nature. So the Treasury Department is denying the Finance Committee access to unclassified documents. That's just completely unacceptable. We all understand we are in the midst of extraordinary and dangerous times. As our own intelligence community assessed in January, Russia interfered in our election with a clear preference for Donald Trump. No one other than Donald Trump has apparently called this assessment into question. For the sake of our national security and the future of our country, it's important to get to the bottom of every aspect of this attack on our democracy. The American people have clearly stated the urgency behind this. My view is the Congress has an obligation to follow the money wherever the evidence leads, conduct a thorough investigation that leaves no stone unturned, and presents to the public what we find. And I'll close by way of saying that I don't see how you can do the essential counterintelligence work that is so important to our committee. And I note the distinguished president of the Senate, the senator from Missouri, is a member of the committee and a valued one. I don't see how the committee can do its counterintelligence work without following the money, because we know that those financial issues are absolutely key. That money is the key to compromising an individual, which is obviously so important in trying to ensure that we have policies in this country that protect our security and our role in the world. Mr. President, with that, I yield the floor, and I note colleagues are waiting. I yield the floor.